Hello, welcome to the Othello Walk-Through for Act 1, Scene 3, and this is, I believe, Part 4. Part 3 or Part 4, anyway, continuing from the last video. So, if you remember, last time we had got to this point where we discovered that Desdemona has told the assembled court that she doesn't she does love Othello after all, and Brabantio gets very angry about the whole thing and says, well, fine, and I have done, my lord. I think that's where we finished. The Duke then utters, and we did do this, then utters a sort of, I suppose it's a kind of make you feel better type speech really, which is all done in rhyming couplets, and Brabantio then replies also in rhyming couplets, and he says, so let the Turk of Cyprus us beguile. So you know, so the Turkish are going to distract our attention now, as we think more about Cyprus and whether we're going to actually get hold of Cyprus. We lose it not so long as we can smile. So as long as you kind of have confidence there, he's basically saying they will be all right. So he's now kind of moving into a formal, almost sort of parliamentary style now. He bears the sentence well that nothing bears. Now I think this, sorry, I had to pause there. This is ridiculously complicated here. If you think it's complicated, well, it might make you feel better to know that I think it's incredibly complicated. Essentially what it is saying, though, you really don't need to worry about it. What it's saying is, the sentence, well, he's being oblique here because presumably he's also talking about what's happened to him and his family now that Desdemona has shamed him, but also, I suppose, yeah, I mean that's basically it. So you know, he said let's now talk about Cyprus. Let's try and smile, which of course he's finding it hard to do. You could just kind of feel a kind of platitudinous, i.e. sort of very superficial form of attitude to the whole thing, in which case you can bear it well, or you can bear the sentence bear the sentence and the sorrow. In other words, you can feel the sorrow. If you accept you have grief and that it takes time for that to wear off, essentially. So he's just saying, look, you know, my life's really tough now. I don't have much sympathy for him. I don't know if the audience would either. I think probably not. I think probably Shakespeare, with this sort of pomposity, is actually showing him up. But there we are. These sentences, to sugar or to girl, being strong about each girl, are equivocal, and they are equivocal. They are literally, you can see, they're kind of matching. They're like little puzzles. So they're equivocal. That means they're kind of even. They either sugar or they gall. So they either sweeten the whole thing or they're kind of bitter. But words are words. I should say they are. I never yet did hear that the bruised heart was pierced through the ear. So you know, in other words, was pierced through the ear. The broken heart was reached or lanced and so cured by words. He's basically saying that it doesn't matter what he says now, it's not going to make him feel better. Beseech you now to the affairs of state. So he starts the speech talking about Cyprus, he ends the speech talking about Cyprus, and all this stuff in the middle is him feeling sorry for himself, essentially. And on goes the kind of proceedings of the state. The Duke says, with most mighty preparation the Turk makes for Cyprus. He says, Othello, the fortitude, that's the fortifications, are best known to you. And though we have a substitute of most allowed sufficiently, so we've got a decent set of soldiers out there, they're pretty good, yet opinion, a more sovereign mistress of effects, more you know, so basically people reckon, and presumably there's some public opinion in here too, is kind of which follows on from what happens rather than what actually might be thought, throws a safer voice on you. In other words, you're our man. You're much more powerful. Again, this is all quite formal, and if it's off-putting, don't worry, because in a sense, when the player leaves this kind of formal arena, it becomes much more kind of gutsy and therefore kind of more emotive and easier to follow. You must therefore be content to slubber the gloss of your new fortunes. She of course still, Desdemona, in all the eyes of all the people there, is a fortune. She's something. She's good luck, but she's also presumably, there's money kind of built into that idea, like something you've won. With this more stubborn and boisterous expedition, we now got this annoying, boisterous, it says here, violent expedition. We've basically got to go to war. So Othello moves, and you'll notice quite an interesting contrast here. This block here is all in prose again. I think I talked about that before, which is interesting. So that is prosaic. It's a block of prose, which is odd that it's given to the Duke. I don't know why that's done, except perhaps to change the tempo, the mood from this sort of formal, I feel sorry for myself, to this, let's get back to business. Othello, however, moves straight into iambic pentameter again, coming off the back. So I think that what that does is to kind of elevate his language as against everyone else. And I think, again, I see that as Shakespeare doing this complicated thing of effectively signalling to us that Othello is heroic, whilst also signalling to us that the people around him see him as an outsider. The tyrant custom, so that's custom, that's habit, and tyrant because it really, it's ruling him all the time. Most grave senators has made the flinty and steel couch of war, so hard stuff, yes, steel and flint, couch of war, couch, i.e. the sort of place you sit in, of war, so this is a metaphor, sort of the hardness of war, my thrice driven bed of down, so it's sort of the softest kind of feather bed. I do acknowledge, I acknowledge, I confess, that a natural and prompt alacrity, I'm actually pretty keen. Alacrity just means kind of eagerness, really. I'm keen to get to war. I find in hardness, he actually finds, I find a sort of eagerness to get stuck in to something hard-edged, hardship. And I'm pleased to take these present wars against the Ottomites, which presumably is the more formal term for the Turk. They use the Turk when they're being more kind of dismissive. The present wars. Okay, most humbly therefore, bending to your state, I crave fit disposition for my wife. I want you to find somewhere or a kind of setup for my wife. I want due reverence and place of exhibition. So actual, I want a decent place for her to go. With the kind of accommodation and appropriate companions besought, as levels with her breeding, as kind of fits the kind of woman she is and the status she has. If you please, says the Duke, what about her father's? Brabantio says, no way. And Othello says, no. And then Desdemona says, nor I. This is really interesting. So we go, be it at her father's. You can see the lines here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 finishes the line. Othello, nor I, 1, 2, and then immediately Desdemona completes the line, which therefore suggests there is no pause running between any of these lines here. I would not there reside. I'm not going to go with back home, put my father in impatient thoughts, drive him mad. By being in his eye, by just kind of being there and reminding him what I've done, in his eyes, obviously. Most gracious Duke, to my unfolding, to what I'm about to say, can you lend your, and it's interesting, prosperous ear, just such an interesting, favourable, but I mean, there must be it is, Shakespeare's always talking in this metaphorical way, so kind of generous, I suppose, bounteous ear. And let me find a charter in your voice, which means, I think, let me find permission to assist my simpleness, as she's really lowering her own status in order that he kind of will listen to her. She's not saying, Duke, can I say something? Yeah, there's a lot more language in there, obviously, for a reason. What would you, Desdemona? What do you want? Well, that I did love that, and she doesn't say straight away. She doesn't say straight away. She says, I want to go with him, please. She goes into a big thing which starts with this is called a noun clause, i.e., it's not finite. It's the beginning of a sentence where you've got to work to get to the main verb, which is itself a metaphor. That I did love the more to live with him. My downright violence and storm of fortunes may trumpet to the world. In other words, my downright violence, my shocking and wrenching decision, which may in fact give a storm of fortunes, which may kind of form have whole mass of ramifications for me. That can trumpet to the world one key thing, that I did love the more to live with him. But the syntax of this allows her to put that I did love the more to live with him at the beginning, which kind of quite a nice rhythm to it, isn't it? That I did love the more to live with him. It is a perfect iambic pentameter line, which is probably, there's a reason for that. My heart's subdued even to the very quality of my Lord. Okay, my heart is subdued, is kind of, has been won over utterly, even to the very quality of my, well, the quality, that's the what Othello has to offer the world. And this is a much debated line here, and one that I can't, you'll need to discuss this in class because I can't really resolve it now. We will talk about it. I saw Othello's visage. So I saw, visage is face, old-fashioned, yes, visage in French. I saw Othello's face, persona, identity, I suppose, in his mind. She saw him in his mind. And to his honours and his valiant parts, where's this going? So this is all his kind of, his what he's done, he's achieved. Did I my soul and fortunes consecrate? So, and consecrate itself is a consecrated ground, etc. It's quite a religious idea. So she kind of bequeathed, bonded her soul and her future to Othello's valiance, his bravery. And I just wonder what you think about this. And we've had this before. Othello says, she loved me for the dangers I had passed. So is that significant here, do you think? So that, dear lords, if I be left behind a moth of peace, so it says down here a drone, which for bees are the ones who don't do anything. That's true, actually. They sit at home, they don't attack, they can't attack, they've got no sting. I know it says moth, but in the Elizabethan times their knowledge of entomology and insects wasn't that great. If I left behind a moth of peace and he go to war, the rights for which I love him are bereft me. This is much debated as well. I recommend you read the notes down here. They are quite interesting. You could just say the rights as in they've got married and they haven't yet had their wedding night yet. So yeah, but it could just be that, or it could be rights, because apparently sometimes it's spelt with R-I-G-H-T-S, as in, I have a right to be with him, kind of thing. And I, a heavy interim, shall support. So it's going to be really, the time's really going to drag by his dear absence as he's gone. And then caesura in the line here, and let me go with him. So that's the request, which should have come, could have come at the beginning of the sentence, of the speech, but doesn't. Okay, I'm going to pause there and pick this up in what may be the final video of this scene. Sorry, it is dragging on quite a long time. I hope you're sticking with me. Thanks a lot.